world, it totally controls my experience of you. It has nothing to do with you. It's my belief. If you treat me mean one day and we're best friends, I'll probably go, you're having a bad day, right? If I can't resolve it with you. And who's ever had a bad day where you hope somebody else thought that about you, you were just having a bad day, right? You know? So, but if I think you're a manipulating bastard, and I'm wrong, but I believe it, and you don't treat me mean, you treat me real nice, what's the first question in our mind? What does he want? So your questions, your belief, your emotion, your experience has nothing to do with life. It's shaped by what you believe. And most of you believe what you believe not by interacting with these people personally. You're doing it through the media. And the media is a great component, but everything is sound bites. And let's be honest, it's no longer about informing you. It's about startling you. Informing you will never get your attention. There's too much. We got oceans, people say that we're living in an information society. That's total bullshit. The information society died a long time ago, right? We're drowning in information. We're starving for wisdom. And what we get now are sound bites. And now people don't, it's not news anymore. On both sides of the table, people basically pretend it's news when it's all commentary. And so your perception, it's like I had lunch recently with George W. Bush. I brought him out to speak to a group in skill, and the one that most people don't give enough value to culturally is more important. And that is you need to alter, if you want an extraordinary life, how many people you know that have achieved it? How many have done this? Who's achieved a goal that was a big goal? You worked your ass off and you achieved it, and then your brain went, is this all there is? Who's had one of these moments? Yeah, almost everybody. And that's worse than failing, because we're all achievers in this room, right? So if you fail, what are you going to do? You get back up, you try another approach, you're going to eventually succeed. You know it in your gut if you're really driven. But if you succeed and you're miserable, now you're what I call technically screwed, right? I mean, because if you're not happy with what you got, failing, you get up and do something new, but succeeding, where do you go? So I really believe, you look at somebody like say, Robin Williams. I think the loss of him is one of the greatest losses we had. He's loved worldwide. I asked people all over the world last year, in China, I asked them in Japan, and Sydney, Australia, throughout the US, how many of you loved, don't raise your hand if you liked him, how many of you loved Robin Williams? I'm curious. Keep your hands up, look around the room. Like 98%, only 2% assholes that didn't like Robin Williams in this room. But when I say this, I didn't say like, I said loved. And so here's a guy, was he an overachiever? He came to Hollywood, everybody comes to Hollywood. He said, I'm on my own show. Yeah, sure you are, buddy. Who's old enough to remember the show? What was it called?
Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy. It's old people in this room, clearly, right? He does Mork and Mindy, but he also makes it the #1 show. Then he says, I'm gonna have a beautiful family, he does that. Then he says, I'm gonna make more money than I could spend, he does that. Then he says, I wanna make movies, he does that. Then he says, I wanna win an Academy Award for not being funny, his #1 skill. And he did it. And then he hung himself in his own home, leaving his wife and children to find his lifeless body. How do you explain that? I'll tell you the answer. He made everybody happy but whom? And his wife said he had Lewy bodies and upsets in his brain. That's all true, but he used drugs and alcohol his entire life. He suffered his entire life, made everybody happy but himself. And so I love the guy. One of my birthdays, I was at TED and I did this talk, which was very popular, and he came to my birthday party. A bunch of guys took me out to dinner that night and jumped on top of the table and sang happy birthday as a Russian woman and then as a Chinese man. And I've never lost a suicide, knock on wood, out of thousands. We made films and follow-up, but I had no idea that's where he was. But I look at a man like that and I say, he's a warning as much as we all loved him, even more so because we loved him. I know none of you are going to kill yourself. I'm not worried about that. But a lot of people live a long time, but they don't really live. Because they let their stress and their frustration, I always say achievers don't get fearful. We're all achievers, right? We don't get fearful, we just get stressed, right? Stress is the achiever word for fear. Because when I say to you, what are you stressed about? Well, I got to do this, I got to make this thing happen. What if you don't? Well, I got to. Well, what if it'll fall apart? What if it falls apart? Then it'll fail. What if it fails? Then I'm a failure. What if you're a failure? And now if I follow the trail of your stress, it'll take me to your deepest fear. And the only way to have your life work is to face that fear and push through it. What is courage? Courage does not mean you're not afraid. It means you're afraid and you do it anyway. You're scared shitless, but you do it anyway. And I think if you're going to succeed at the highest level, you've got to face those fears.